Good morning, ninth grade. Welcome to class. This is your Chapter 14 test review day and your test day. So we're going to go through every question from your review packet as we go through this PowerPoint. So you want to check your answers. They go in order. So you want to check your answers, and if you had one incorrect, you want to make sure that you indicate the correct one. Oh, hello there. I'm actually here. Surprise, surprise. Question number 1. After the Civil War, what product was made from oil that could be used to light lamps? The answer is kerosene. Kerosene, of course, is a more refined version of oil, and it's even more refined than gasoline. It's more clear, and you can put a wick in it, and it will continue to fuel the lamp. And there's pictures of kerosene lamps for you. Next. Besides oil, there was an increase in demand for these two natural resources after the war: iron and coal. Remember, steel is not a natural resource. You actually make steel from iron, so it is a product and not a natural resource. So the answer is iron and coal. Here's a picture of iron. And look, here's a picture of coal. They don't look all that much different, do they? Next. The Bessemer process. What is it? It is the name of the process when you take iron, you take out the nickel, and you produce steel. So essentially, it is named after the person who invented it. And that is a picture of someone performing the Bessemer process. Not an easy process. What year was the telephone invented? 1876. And there we go. There you have it, the first telephone. Okay, women made up what percentage of the nation's workforce by 1910? And that is, of course, 40%. Lots of new jobs opened up for them. And here's one of them. This would be a woman working in a secretarial position. Looks like she's making copies. All right, so out of all of the new inventions of the late 1800s, what was one positive effect? More free time. You can also say leisure time. Your book used leisure time. And if you were super lucky, you had one of these. How many miles of railroad track crossed the U.S. by 1890? 200,000, just about 200,000. And this is a picture, of course, when the two railroad tracks met up with each other and connected for the first time. They had a party. Chinese immigrants were hired by the railroad industries to do what? We did talk about the fact that they were kind of given the dirty work. So they were given the explosives. They were the ones that went into the mountains and cleared the way for the tunnels, for the railroad track to be built. What did Thomas Alva Edison invent? The Alva might have thrown you off. It's okay. It's still Thomas Edison. And of course, he did invent the light bulb. And that would be kind of what the first light bulb looked like. In what industry did Andrew Carnegie make millions of dollars? And it's not in the deli industry like in New York City. It's in steel. And this actually is a picture of Bethlehem Steel Corporation or company back when it was first built. If you've ever gone to Bethlehem and you've seen what they call the steel stacks, there are still structures there that look similar to this today. Okay, vertical integration. Vertical is this way, okay? The process of buying out all the suppliers of the raw materials down the line. Here would be a little picture of how it works. So you are the end consumer, so you're buying the pizza from a pizza chain, let's say Domino's or Papa John's, which is my personal favorite. So let's say you are Papa John's. You now own all of these, okay? So you own all of the places that produce the things that you need to make your pizza, okay? A holding company is a company that buys out all the stock from other companies. So you hold all of the stock. So you essentially own all of the companies, but you're not running and you're not doing things in the company. But you own them because you own all the stock. Okay, so you're kind of like the picture, your little puppet there. Trust. A corporation formed by different companies coming together as one, and they agree to do it. Okay, so they'll agree to do it. And of course, this is something that became illegal with the Sherman Antitrust Act. What theory gave the business community a reason to work harder because it suggested only the strongest will survive? That would be natural selection or survival of the fittest. And this, of course, is Charles Darwin. And it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsible to change. I like that. Eugene V. Debs was a leader of what union? That's the American Railway Union. He defended workers that built the railroads and railroad cars and things. And he, people did say to him, "You should run for president." So this would have been one of the little pins. It's a pin that people used to wear. The National Labor Union persuaded the government to adopt what? That's an 8-hour workday in government offices. And they did win that. And this was kind of their battle cry. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of leisure time. 3 times 8, 24. Socialism, a political system based on government control of businesses and property. The government will control it, and they will disperse things the way they see fit in an equal distribution. Okay, so it's very different than what capitalism is. Capitalism being free enterprise and competition among businesses. Socialism doesn't allow for that. What types of things do unions fight for? They fight for all the things we talked about that were not good. Higher wages, better working conditions, an 8-hour workday or lower work hours. They fought for children not having to work, things like that. This is actually a picture much later in history than the time period we're talking about, but I still liked it. What was the name of the factory where a woman died because the fire escapes were out of order? They were locked in their room. That's the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. This is the same picture that's in your book. This woman worked to organize mine workers and children, Mary Harris Mother Jones, and that's, of course, her, after she lost her husband and all of her children to yellow fever. They all died. She survived and then, of course, made it her goal to work for the better good of the children. A scab, a replacement worker for someone who goes on strike. So they weren't really necessarily considered to be a positive thing. So they gave them a yucky name. And I didn't put a picture in because when I Google searched scab, disgusting pictures came up. All right, the Sherman Antitrust Act. They're showing here monopolistic trusts and these highway of competition are getting roadblocked. So they outlawed monopolies and trusts with the Sherman Antitrust Act, essentially saying there is at this point, if we allow them, you won't be able to have competition. So that's what the picture is showing you. So it outlawed trusts. What union formed in 1868 that allowed all types of people to join regardless of their race, gender, or skill? The Knights of Labor. They're still in existence today. I think the oldest one that still exists today that was in existence at the time we're talking about. And that would just be a picture, a poster. All right, Carnegie bought out all competing companies in a process called what? That would be horizontal consolidation. The pixels got a little messed up here. But they're showing you here are independent oil refineries. All of them were purchased by Rockefeller. He has one big Standard Oil company. So there's no competition in a system like that. What's a strike? When workers refuse to work and demand something. Okay, and this is, of course, the SEPTA strike we talked about. Name 3 big ways businesses try to break up unions. Okay, this is something that you needed to have read about in your book. We didn't discuss it a lot in class, so make sure you take note here. They would fire workers that were part of unions, which is not right. It's your right to be part of a union, but back when they were first forming, that didn't necessarily happen. They made striking workers go back to work. They would send in federal troops to make them go back to work. We did talk about that one. They would ban union meetings. They would go in and disperse the people when they were in meetings, and they would employers would say it was illegal to hold them. And lastly here, they made workers sign a contract that said they wouldn't join. That's your book uses the term like yellow form or something with the word yellow to reference the form that they had to sign. And sorry if my face is covering it. To sign to say that they wouldn't join a union. Okay, so this was trying to break up the unions instead of supporting them. All right, make sure you study the words of the day, especially hint, hint, wink, wink. Exploit, bypass, diverge, consolidation, integrate, and that would be it. Oh, I should go back. Hold on. Those are the words that you need to know. Out of all of your words of the day, highlight those, and I'm sorry if they're covered by my video here. Okay, make sure you study those. Make sure. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I'll let you look at those while I eat a bite of chocolate. Delicious. Okay, the written portion of the test, I'm actually not even going to call an essay this time because I know you're super excited. You need to make sure that you have all the components of an essay, but I'm not asking for 5 paragraphs. I'm just asking for 1 paragraph. You just wrote these amazing 5-paragraph essays. The great majority of you turned them in. I'm so super proud of you. So what I want is an introduction statement, 3 supporting facts. Make sure your details go along with each of those facts. Explain them, in other words. Details explain what you're trying to say. A conclusion statement to summarize it and wrap it all up. And you're only, again, writing 1 paragraph this time. Please don't write the 5. If you really want to, please do. There's nothing wrong with writing 5 paragraphs, but I would prefer it for your sake if you just composed 1. Okay, again, you wrote these amazing essays, so I want to celebrate that. Okay, so here are the facts for your essay, and hopefully you filled out your study guide and you have lots of facts on there, but I have some here. I have to go a little bit quickly. I can't leave all of this up for too long, but I want to show you some examples of things that you could have. I'm not going to leave it up long enough for you to copy everything down. Again, you should have done your work ahead of time. But your study guide packet has a writing prompt that had like 4 different questions to go with to give you an idea of what you should do. So in general, you should be writing about 1 fact to support each one of those different questions. That's why I put them there. So here's one of the questions that you could have. What is the labor union movement? What was it? The labor union movement took place in the late 1800s, and it was when workers came together to fight for their rights. The rights they were fighting for were better working conditions, higher wages, shorter working hours. Okay, so that's an example of one thing you can write, a general description of what the labor unions were and what their goals were, what they wanted to fight for. Okay, here's another example addressing the next question. Who was involved? You could choose Andrew Carnegie. You could choose Rockefeller, the robber barons, J.P. Morgan. But here's a fact that you could have for Andrew Carnegie. He was involved because he owned the Homestead Steel Company when the workers went on strike in Pennsylvania. Wages were cut in half to increase profit, and Carnegie hired scabs to replace the striking workers. The conflict ended with people getting killed, and 6 workers and 3 law enforcement agents were killed. All right, what did it accomplish? There were many wins for the labor unions. For example, the National Labor Union won an 8-hour workday for government workers, and the Knights of Labor fought for an 8-hour workday in industries and equal pay for women. You could also mention all of the things that we said were accomplished after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, the laws that were changed for safety, and things like that on that article that you highlighted or underlined. The last question here, how did the government get involved? Here I am again. The government got involved when they thought that the strike would hurt the economy. For example, President Hayes sent in the federal troops to force workers back on the job when railroad workers went on strike in the 1877 Great Strike, or the Great Strike of 1877. That's only one example. We talked about the Pullman strike, and you could also talk about the fact that, in general, the fact that when the railroad workers went on strike with the Pullman strike, the government sent in troops. President Cleveland sent in troops and said, you have to go back to work because it's a threat to national security, essentially. Okay? And I